Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time out to, come out on a beautiful day, on a beautiful weekend, and making your intention to be here to learn, to benefit. And before we start, I want to do like a visualization. So if everybody can just close their eyes, and especially the moms here. Now I want you guys to imagine that it's the year 2042, so 20 years from now. Imagine that none of your kids are at home. Finally, you and your husband are doing Ramadan in peace. That means no interruption. You can do all your ibadah, everything that you wanted to do during Ramadan without any interruption. And because you always prep for Ramadan, you decide that this year you're going to too. So you get your banner out, but then you realize that there isn't anyone to help you hold on to the other side. And it seems kind of silly now to have light. You finally have a iftar ready 10 minutes before, and you sit down to do some dhikr and make dua. And as your spouse sets out the plates, there's only two dates, two cups. It seems kind of empty, like something is missing. It can be peaceful, but you feel like there's something missing. You look across the table at your husband and all the empty seats, and you both start reminiscing about the times when one of our children did this, or remember the time when that child spilled reflect on how everyone worked together during iftar time. Remember sitting and reading Quran together, and you remember bowing down and your toddler resting their head on you and climbing over you, and it brings tears to your eyes because it's all over. You remember your kids unloading the dishwasher, the screaming, the yelling, the laughing. And then you think, the only regret that I have is, and I want you guys to take a couple of seconds to just think, what would that regret be? And then I want you to come back to right now. Saturday, late morning, and we look around our messy homes. The dishwasher isn't done. You don't know what you're gonna have for iftar today. The laundry needs to be done. When are you gonna have time to sit and actually read Quran in peace? And you think that I'm not gonna have enough time. I can't go to Tarawih. The baby woke up too many times last night. And we have all these negative thoughts. But do you realize that they're all just our thoughts? They're all our thoughts. And so today I want to talk about when in 20 years, inshallah, when all our kids have gone to their homes and we're sitting and having Ramadan and iftar alone one night, then we won't have those regrets. We're gonna sit across the table from our husband and we're gonna say, those were the good old days, and so are these. There's no regrets. We have beautiful memories. And even the hard parts, we can both laugh at now. And also tell each other, aren't you glad that we didn't make such a big deal out of this? Aren't you glad how we just went with the flow and we, despite the chaos in the house, we were at peace. That helped our whole environment become a peaceful environment. And at Ramadan, despite the not fasting or not being able to pray or having so many other kids' obligations, Ramadan was still beautiful for us. And that's possible for everybody, no matter what. But a lot of it is what we think and how we look at things, our mindset. And so today I just want to give you guys some practical tips and some things that has helped me. And in different seasons of our life, whether we have a newborn or we have a teenager, there are going to be some things that we just have to be flexible with. But there's some common things that we can, if we have the right mindset, then it doesn't matter. We can be flexible, and everybody can do that. So one thing that I want to just share first is that, Ramadan, we've all heard it, is like a boot camp. Whether you choose to accept that challenge or not, but when we have kids, it is like we're in it, whether we want to be there or not. And one of the things that we get caught up in is we compare our pre-kids Ramadan with our post-kids Ramadan. And we think our Ramadan should be how it is without kids. And how can we strive to get there? How can I get 1 hour or 2 hours of free just to be able to read the Quran? And that may not be doable for like 10 years, but we're always looking for that 2-hour block. And sometimes it's easier for us to just accept that, we don't have a 2-hour block. So what can we do now? And the thing is that it's a blessed month, whether you're a CEO of a company, whether you are traveling, whether you just had a baby, you have a toddler, you have teenagers, whatever phase in life we're in, it's also Ramadan for us. It's for everyone. It's not just a beautiful Ramadan for the person who can just sit on their prayer rug and take off work. I was visiting my aunt last week, and she said that, she asked her work if they could give her Ramadan off. And she said, I'm just going to take the whole month off. And I thought that was just beautiful, and it's so nice. And she said that, what, I deserve it because I raised my kids. They're all out of the house. They're all married. And now I want to just sit and be able to do that. And so there's a time and a place. So we can get there, but maybe the phase that we're in, we're not able to right now. But it doesn't mean we'll never get there. So just know that it's a blessed month for everyone. And we can all get something out of it. But with kids, the thing is that raising our kids is an act of ibadah, as an act of worship. And so we can meet their needs with a joyful heart, with intention. And with the right intention, when we realize that, because it already is, right? Whether we know it or not, whether we're complaining or not, taking care of our kids is worship. But if we're intentional about it and we say that, what, instead of getting upset about, oh my gosh, I have to stop and change their diaper, I have to, it seems like a chore to us. But the thing is, if we change our outlook and the way we reframe things, so instead of, oh, I have to do this, I have to feed the kids, I have to do laundry, one little thing that I do that I changed, that changed my whole perspective, is I said, instead of I have to, I said I get to. I get to change his diaper. I get to do the laundry. Alhamdulillah for a washing machine and a dryer. I get to sit with him and read a book to him. Because these are going to become a collection of memories for us. So keeping that in mind, one of the first tips that I want to talk about is to slow down and simplify. And this is really hard because if we're kind of like in a rat race and we're in the hamster wheel and we have so many things that we have to do, where everything is scheduled. In the morning, we have to do this. At 10 o'clock, we have to do this. Somebody has to be dropped off. Somebody has to do their class and they have to be online for. Then I have my own errands to run, so it's chaotic. So how do you slow down when you already have a full schedule and there's nothing that you can do? And the thing is that take into account that there are advantages that we already have. Like, for example, being in a global pandemic, the beauty of that is there's a blessing in it, which is that maybe we don't have as many outside obligations. There are things that we don't have to do. We don't have to go to the iftar parties. We don't have to take on extra things that we usually would have taken on outside. So we can pick and choose. When we're not on the go, we actually have a moment to sit, right? Instead of having to go drop off your kids to school or go somewhere, right? We actually have that commute time that we can carve out and just think, just reflect. Just take that 2 minutes to, you know what, I'm just gonna read half a page of the Quran today at this time. But slowing down also mentally, right? We have so many thoughts. Where it's almost as if like we have brain clutter and we have so many thoughts, so many things that we're thinking about. So one good way to simplify our mind and our thoughts is to write it down on paper. So something that I like to do when I feel really overwhelmed and I feel like I'm just on the go and there's no time to just even breathe, is that I write down everything. I take a paper out and I just jot down everything that's in my mind. It could be while I'm looking around, you know, so I'm just really overwhelmed and I'll just take a piece of paper and I'm like, okay, the hallway has all the stuff in it that needs to be put away. I have to do the laundry. I have to call my mom. I have to call my aunt. I have to drop off food to so-and-so. Everything that's going on, I have to help my son with his homework. I have to spend 5 minutes with my daughter doing XYZ. Whatever it is, when we take it out of our mind, it just declutters and then we're able to actually have some peace and we can think and problem solve. So when we are on the go and we're overwhelmed, then we can't really problem solve. We're just kind of taking on whatever comes to us. We're reacting to everything, to our kids and to our home, to our husbands, to our family, to our circumstances. And then that makes us feel helpless and we don't have any control. So then when our son comes to us complaining about his sister or brother, then it's so easy to just snap. So slowing down and simplifying, not just in our minds, but also our homes, simplifying and making it easier. So let's say you have 10 boxes of toys. Why not just have 2 boxes out? Let's say you have so many, you have shelves and shelves of books. Maybe putting some books in a basket and putting it in their room. And I just want to go over practical things, more practical things that we can do with certain ages. So from 0 to 3, we have space to get to know them deeply from when they're 0 to 3. They're not, and the thing is that when we simplify our homes and we simplify our minds and our schedule, then we have that space to just look at our baby. Like while we're nursing the baby, instead of being on the phone and doing anything else, we can take a couple minutes to just look at them because they're looking at us. We can understand them. So the more we look at them and just observe our kids, our 1-year-old or 2-year-old, and we're just sitting there and we think that, oh, we're not doing anything. We're just sitting here. No, we're observing, we're looking at our kids. They're showing us things, we're making eye contact. Then we're getting to know them. We're getting to know what their temperament is. We're getting to know what they like and they dislike, what their facial expressions, what they're scared of, what they're kind of, their nonverbal cues and what they're telling us. And this is really important because as they get older, you know, there's a lot of times when sometimes the kids are acting a certain way, you're like, I don't know why they're doing that. Well, you won't have too many of those when you really, really know them when they're younger. And then they come to you and then they see that you're looking at them, you're listening to them. And one of the biggest reasons why our kids, like, I guess, misbehave is that they don't feel heard or seen. So if they know, if they can trust us from 0 to 3 that we're listening and we're watching them, they will have that established trust. And then as they get older, they'll always know to come to us. They'll listen, they'll cooperate and listen more. And also something else that's really amazing, that when we just watch our kids, instead of being on the go and watch our kids, and I'm going to tell you the story. A couple of years ago, I in the morning, I just have to have peaceful time where I'm drinking my warm drink, doing some dhikr, and while my kids are playing outside. And one of my kids came inside, and he was maybe 5 at this time. And one of the tactics is to, when you want to be more mindful and you're trying to be present with your kids, is to look them in the eyes. This is a part of the sunnah, you know? So you look them in the eyes when you're talking to them or they're talking to you, and you're giving them your full attention. So I did that. And you know what? He was 5 or 6, and I looked into his eyes, and I don't know what he said. Do you know why? Because this is the first time I felt like I saw how beautiful his eyes were. And it brought tears to my eyes because I said, how did I not know this? How did I not notice this before? For years, I missed it. Like, I live with my son. I see him all the time. But when I looked into his beautiful, beautiful, mashallah, beautiful brown, dark brown eyes, his eyelashes, the shape of his eyelids, and I was just mesmerized. And I was like, subhanallah, these eyes are so beautiful. How come I never noticed them? And that brought me joy. And this is a couple years ago. And, you know, right now, what we tend to do is, like, we see something and we take a picture of it so we can have that in our memory. But there's something else when we experience it, because I don't think I'll ever forget the beauty that I saw, those beautiful eyes that I saw. And so when we pause, we can notice those beautiful things in our kids. We can notice the good in our kids. Because, you know, when they're acting up, when they're making noise, when they're doing things that are wrong and misbehaving, and we're on edge, it's really easy for the thoughts in our minds about our kids to be negative. But when the foundation is positive, when the foundation is built on mercy and love and connection and compassion, then it's easier to find that. I was talking to a mom of a teenager this past weekend, last weekend, and I asked her, so tell me something good about yourself. And you know what she said? It was so sad. She said, I don't know. I can't think of anything. And she said, I don't think I was ever connected to notice that, to notice the good, because I always pointed out the bad. And so where does this all start? It starts here, when our kids are younger, when we can simplify and we can really, really be intentional about where our efforts are, where our time is going, what we're looking at. And I could have been on my phone scrolling while he's telling me and complaining about his brother. But because I said to myself, I'm going to try to be present with them. I want to be present with them. I want to practice. I saw something beautiful and that I'll never forget. So with older kids, for example, to simplify could be their schedule, could be their toys. Simplifying their schedule is really important because they actually need a lot of time, at least 3 hours. A lot of research says that 3 hours of unstructured time. So that's really important to have. And nowadays, because of online classes and a tight schedule, and we want them to learn, that we fill their schedule up where they don't really have downtime. And that can cause a lot of frustration in kids because they need that downtime. And for 9 to 12-year-olds, what I like to do is help them plan. So we'll have a schedule that starts their day off, like the hour by hour, and we'll look at that and we'll say, okay, where are the times that you have to have your classes? Where are the times that you're going to do your Quran? Where are the times that, and we block those. And then we look at the empty time. And then it makes them kind of feel good, because then they see there's space for them to do their own thing, to do art, or to go outside and play with their siblings. There's that time that they can actually also think and reflect, and they need that as well. And we need downtime. We need to recharge, and the way kids recharge is through play. So we need to create that space for them to be able to play. And if we have such a tight schedule or everybody's on the go, they will burn out as much as we will. And our burnout may be irritable, and we're just going to sleep like in 2 seconds at night, but their burnout may be showing up as frustration, sibling rivalry, whining, crying, not listening to us, so misbehavior. So we have to, the more we know our kids, the more we have space to get to know them, to see them, and for them to be able to come to us and reflect, then it's the faster we can help them regulate and help them create peace in our home, because we understand what's going on. And also simplifying needs to just reduce the distractions, eliminate irrelevant traditions that we may have, or things that we've signed up for that's not really that important. If everything is important in our schedule, every single thing, and it's from like 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., then nothing is important. So we have to know how to prioritize. And also simplifying our meals, that has helped a lot. When you have little kids who may be picky eaters, they may have different preferences. And something we do is that, like one of my kids likes chicken, the other one doesn't. One likes beef, the other one doesn't. So we ask them, like, what would you like to have dinner this week? And so at least once a week, everybody gets their meal. And then what the other things we can compromise, or we have like a secondary thing that, all kids are, going to eat, or maybe there's something that we can actually add in to our meal plan that, is something that, everybody's going to eat, or keep on hand, that we know that this is our go-to. And I think somebody asked, how about older kids? And the older they get, I feel like the more we can include them into our Ramadan prep, into our prep for the day. So helping make the iftar, helping with the cooking. And even with my younger kids, like helping them or training them, because it isn't just our job, and everybody's busy. Not everybody wants to take time out of Quran or their busy schedule to cook, right? I don't want to sometimes either. I rather just listen to a really good talk and spend time making dua and doing dhikr. But then I have to cook. So I tell my kids, you know what? I need your help. How can we make sure that we have a really good iftar and nice family dinner? But I really need your help. Can you give me some ideas? Asking them to contribute. So, and the older they are, and I feel like by the time they get to be teens, maybe asking them to contribute even more. Like I would love, my goal is that by the time my kids are teens, they're making a meal. Like once a week, one person is cooking, another person is cooking. And that's totally doable, but we have to empower them. We have to be able to give them responsibilities. It could be when they're younger, you ask them to set the plate, set the table. Another one, it could be like, oh, can you give the dates to everybody who's fasting? So it starts with little things, but we have to empower our kids. One day, they're not just going to come and say, you know what, go ahead and sit down, I'll take over. It takes time to do that. So, which falls into the second tip, which is prep. We all have 24 hours in a day, no matter what. Our kids have 24 hours, we have 24 hours. the busiest people in the world, they have 24 hours. So it's not really about time management as it is about self-management. How are we managing ourselves? What are we prioritizing? And again, writing things down for this week, for example, that really helps. Even if you don't have chicken soup on Tuesday night, but at least you had that in the plan. You know, at least you have something to fall back on. Because sometimes with us, with our family, something comes up. So having a plan in place, it just gives us something to fall back on. And it just gives us a peace of mind that, you know what, we have something planned. So writing that down for kids 0 to 3, they may be a short list of what what for. Okay, I don't know what you guys missed, but I was talking about prep. And when our kids are 0 to 3, we can prep and we can say that, you know what, when I'm nursing the baby or putting the baby to sleep, I'm going to be memorizing one ayah. That's it. Of a dua or part of a Quran, a surah that you're memorizing. That's a goal that we can have while we're in prep. Or when we're taking a walk, and this is something that you can plan ahead of time, right? Like this is something that's predictable. So when I'm putting my kids to sleep, I'm gonna do dhikr because it's nighttime. I can't, and I don't want my phone by me, so I'm just gonna do dhikr at night. I can plan that, you know what, when after I put my kids to sleep, then this is when I'm gonna read my Quran for 25 minutes or whatever it is. That's just an example. If our kids are from 4 to 8, another thing that we can prep and put into our prep is activities for them to do or books that we want to read to them. The easiest thing to do is like grab a bunch of Noor Kids books and have one for each day. That has really helped me a lot, saying, okay, today I'm going to talk about a concept that's in that book. And that's also a good reminder for us. You know, the thing is that sometimes we think that, okay, that's not my ibadah, that's helping my kids. But you know what? It also is ours because it's a reminder. And I love that we can also remember different aspects of things that we can bring in. So maybe we've taken classes, we have a better understanding of a certain name of Allah or certain concept that we're teaching our kids, right? We're doing crafts, but then we can bring in our own personal information, our own personal reflection. And that makes it so much more real. You know, and that's something that the kids, that's what they're gonna remember because you're bringing in your own personal emotion into it. I remember one time we were making a craft and it was on the stick of Musa. And it was just a stick and we had glitter, little glitter things, and the sequence, we were gluing it on there. And then while they're doing that reflection, and at one time I was just like choking up because it was just so emotional for me. And my kids stopped and they looked at me. And then, you know, I kind of calmed down and then they told me that was the best story, Mama. That was the best story I've heard. Because what do kids connect with the emotion in it? You know, I could be reading something to them and it could be kind of just very objective, but when we make it subjective, and then I was thinking, I'm like, you know what, sometimes when I'm scared, then I think of Prophet Musa and it helps me feel less scared. And so it's something that I'm bringing in that helps me, that's relevant, that may be relevant to them one day. And that connection, that's something that they're going to remember. something that I just thought of how it's so important to just bring in our own personal reflection into our prep. And it may be impromptu, but at least when we have certain things prepped for our kids, then in our own personal reflections. Depending on, also for older kids, depending on their availability, bringing them into the process, like I said, into the kitchen, helping. And one thing that I love, especially in Ramadan, is that we've prepped, for example, for my older, one of my older kids. This year, their goal was to memorize Surah Mulk. And my daughter, she doesn't know that surah, so she said that I'm going to memorize Surah Mulk, but every day I'm going to take one ayah and I'm going to reflect on it. And there happened to be at IOK, in Diamond Bar IOK, they have a series, and every day they're reflecting on one ayah of Surah Mulk. So I said, that's perfect. You can listen to it and take some notes down. So in the evening when we get together, then you can share that with us. And that's something that while she's listening to, and I'm doing my work, whether it's doing the laundry or something in the kitchen, and she's listening to it, I'm listening to it. And even though I already know this, right? We already know this. Maybe you've all read the tafsir of the whole Quran, but every time we read it, there's just so many layers. There's no way that we can know everything. And even though, and I told her that, yeah, I studied this a couple of years, I studied the same a couple of years ago. And then I'll tell her that, wow, you know what? And I'll stop and I'll tell her, wow, you know what? I didn't think about that in that way. You know, I've read this surah so many times, and I read this ayah and this word, and I never knew that. You know, we always learn something, and Allah always reveals more to us. And so what does that model to them? That, you know what? It doesn't matter if you already know, maybe this time Allah is going to give you an extra gem, and to look at it a different way. And that's something that when we prep, when we set our kids up where we can, at whatever age they are, depending on, of course, if you have a baby, a toddler, things are very different. You may not be doing a lot with your kids, but as they get older, we can do things together. And when they do things, it's a reminder for us. Because all these talks that we have available, you know, mashallah, there's so many. A lot of them we may know, but we forget. And as parents, we're doing so many different things. Let's use our kids as a way that they can remind us. So I know that there's 6, we're only getting to the third. I'm going to go a little bit faster. So the third one is, and one of the most important ones, whether it's inside or outside of Ramadan, it doesn't matter. It's regulate your emotions. I can just, you know, take the rest of the class and the whole day to just talk about this. But if we want a peaceful Ramadan, it starts with us. Second, if we don't have emotional regulation, there won't be peace. Because our kids, because we're older, our kids don't have that emotional regulation. They're looking to us to help them regulate. And if we're kind of just having a temper tantrum of our own, then it's just chaos in the house. And that has happened in every home, I'm sure. That's happened in my house. And this is really easy to say, but it's really hard to do. Just be calm. And we're gonna go a little bit deeper. What is our natural state? You know, sometimes we have to be really, really honest with ourselves and look inward and say, what are the times when I lose my cool? When I don't feel calm inside, when I feel really anxious? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his baseline emotion state was calm. He came from a place of compassion, saw good in others. Let's ask ourselves, do we see good in our kids when they do something bad? When they hit another sibling and they're teasing them, do we see good in them? And if we don't, and a lot of times we're just really irritated with them. When their behaviors trigger us, there's always an emotion behind it. Sometimes it's fear. A lot of times it's fear. You know, one child hit the other child and you think that, oh my gosh, he can get hurt. You know, he could seriously get hurt. His head could, break. So out of fear, we may react. So there's a lot of things that come to us and we have to differentiate it. We have to lay it on the table. What helps with that? How can we even do that? Because sometimes we just react automatically. We can't pause. And people say, just pause, wait, be patient. It's actually a verb because it takes action. There's so many things that have to be in place for us to even pause. One, it's sitting with that discomfort. And we feel that discomfort, when we're being triggered, we feel a lot of discomfort. And part of it to sit with it. And having an affirmation really helps, or a mantra, which is saying something to yourself. So for me, this is not an emergency. Your child says something and it triggers you and you just feel like you have to stop it right then and there. You have to correct him right then and there. It's the end of the world. Or he's going to grow up and he's going to be the most disrespectful child ever. You have to stop this right now. We don't. It's not an emergency. And if we can't calm ourselves down, we can't calm our kids down. It's kind of like when you're in fight-flight mode and then you're reacting, or your kids are in fight-flight mode because they're hitting or they're doing something, they're screaming, and then we get in fight-flight mode. That just it's a recipe for just the opposite of peace. It's chaos, and then everybody's yelling, fighting, everybody's shutting down. So one of the things that we can do is just not say anything. Sometimes things are going on, we're listening to them and we're not saying anything. And the other thing is that deep breathing techniques really, really, really help. You can Google the benefits of deep breathing, breath work, or, some people have that's what kind of meditation is, breath work. So there's an app that's called the Subber app that somebody came out with. It's really, really helpful. So if you download that app, that can help you with the deep breathing. What happens is that it calms your nervous system down. It takes us out of fight, flight, freeze mode. And we're able to think. We're able to problem solve. We're able to do what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam he did, was respond with wisdom. And that's what we all want to do. We want to respond with wisdom. We don't want to have that regret. We don't want to yell, you're making my Ramadan the worst ever. Because you know what? It's not our kids' job to be calm and be very quiet so we can have a good Ramadan. That's not our kids' job. Our kids are children, and children will do childish things. So they're kids. They're not accountable for anything. They don't even have to fast, right? So, but we do. We're accountable. We're the adult. So it's our job to create calmness so they can be calm. They can be more calm. Or even if they're having a hard time, because obviously they can't regulate their emotions as well as we can, but they can come back to calmness faster. So instead of having a 30-minute tantrum, maybe they'll just have a 10-minute one. And it'll get shorter and shorter. But it starts with us because we're their environment. Something else that really works. So one of the breath works that I like to do is that basically I put one hand on my stomach and then I take a deep breath from my nose. And then you can feel your stomach kind of expanding. So take it in slowly from your nose and pause for 4 seconds and then release. within like 6 seconds release. And if I do that throughout the day and I maybe incorporate it into a habit, that really helps to bring me back into being present. The whole point of it is to be mindful. And the whole point of Ramadan is to become more mindful of what we do, what we don't do, where we're spending our time, to do an audit of our life, right? So then the next 11 months could be better. We have better tools to combat when the shaitan whispers in our ears. So one way, especially with kids, when they're fighting or yelling and you hear them, I'll just take a deep breath before I go out. And I'm able to just be calm. When they see my calm presence, then they're able to as well. And this takes time. If this is the first time you've ever heard of this, it takes time. And you're going to forget, and then you'll remember. You're going to forget. And what it does is that if you weren't raised this way, then you don't know how to do it, but then you can learn. You can rewire your brain. And every time you pause and every time you're like, okay, wait, this is not an emergency. Let's be calm. You know what? Whatever it is that you're telling yourself, it rewires your brain. And the next time you're going to think quicker. Then it's going to get to this. You're going to be able to pause faster. You're going to be able to pause for a longer amount of time. And a lot of this depends on we get triggered, right? How to control our emotions. We get triggered by so many things. There could be things that happened with our spouse earlier this morning. It could be something that happened with our mother, or it could be something that happened in the community or with a friend that we don't realize that's really bothering us. So knowing ourselves and getting to know ourselves. And I was telling somebody, a parent, that, we have to really know our kids. And they said that, how am I going to know my child? I don't even know myself. So it really starts with, when we talk about regulating our emotions starts with knowing ourselves, knowing what triggers us, why. And sometimes when I'm just really overwhelmed, and I talked about this before, is that I write things down. So when I feel triggered, I write things down. And I realized one time I wrote so many things down, and then I realized none of it really was my child. It was the mess that was on the counter. It was something that I had to do that I forgot to do. So identifying those and saying that, you know what, I'm not really upset at them. I'm really upset because of this mess, which I'll get to today. That helps us also get calm really quickly. So the fourth tip is having routines. And this really depends on, again, how old your kids are, what phase you're in, your kid's temperament. And there's so many things and tips online about the perfect routine, the perfect morning routine, the perfect evening routine. And there really isn't any perfect ones. It is what works for you in your home. For me, personally, I leave my kids' bedtime routine the same during Ramadan. In or out of Ramadan, it's the same for my younger kids, which is younger than 9. So 9 and below, their routines are exactly the same, because I need to recharge, and I personally recharge at night. And so I need them to be able to go to bed, by a certain time. And if I don't, it's almost like I'm checked out and I turn into like a monster. So they're going to benefit as much as I will when I stick to my evening routine. And so when we had regular Tarawih prayer, then my husband would go for the first 8. By that time, I already put the kids to sleep. And then he would come back, and then I would go for the last 8, because we lived close to the masjid, and we were able to do that, and my kids didn't wake up. But when my babies when they did wake up, I made a really special area in the room or in the house when it was quiet. And in the beginning, it was really hard to do, because you just feel like, I have to go to the masjid. How is this even Ramadan? But then when I got used to that, then I found so much peace and comfort, and I was able to do so much more. I was doing Quran journaling. I was doing dhikr. I didn't have the distractions. And then I remember one time I went to a qiyam at the masjid, and then I couldn't concentrate. I was like, you know what? I want to go home. I'd rather just go home because I can get so much done there. I was reflecting more. I was reflecting on each of my kids. I had that space to do that. And so it's such a great blessing because I was also reflecting on things that I wanted to improve. What are things that I want for my family? You know, one of the things that came out of that was that let's do every year, let's revive a sunnah. That's something that came out of that. Another thing that me and my husband used to do before we had kids, we were able to continue that. What's one thing that we want to do during Ramadan that we haven't done, a habit or anything that we're going to continue throughout the year. So that gave me space to work on that, to evaluate that. So another thing that this routine, it depends on is, do you have work? Do you have help? Are you working? Do you have other people that you have to take care of, like your parents? Can you sleep in? Do your kids have class early in the morning? All of these things really affect your routine. So when you're making a routine, I would say that instead of a schedule, think of what phase your kids are in, what they need, what you need, how can you problem solve and put this puzzle together, because it's going to look different for each family. So if we look at somebody else's routine, we say, okay, we're going to do that, and it doesn't work for us because maybe our kids have a different temperament and they're not able to kind of follow your lead. But one thing that really helps me with the routine, though, is avoiding overstimulation for our kids. Too much going on causes a lot of behavior issues with the kids. And so when I do have certain routines, for example, like in the morning, we're going to go outside. Whatever we're doing, we're going to go outside, we're going to go for a walk, or you can read outside. We're just going to be outside in the morning. That's part of our routine. But if instead I change it up and I said, okay, they're on the computer, or they're just doing their own thing and they're watching things, and it's just too many hours of screen time, that affects their behavior. That's what I'm talking about. So they're overstimulated, and then we can't really get back into our evening routine. So that affects them in the evening or night. So having a routine and trying to stick to it, that really helps. And kids, obviously, they like routine and they thrive on that. So that really helps. I think that was more. Okay. So the next thing. So the next thing is focusing on ourselves. So that's number 5. Tip 5 to have a peaceful Ramadan with our kids is to focus on ourselves. And you know, with so many things, for example, all the different activities that there are for kids of different ages, there's so much. We can get so consumed with that. I would say just pick one thing that you want to do. And you know, this year I signed up the kids for 2 different things, and that was even too much. So then we just kind of pick one for the morning and one for the afternoon to simplify it. While they're doing their things, then that's when I do mine. So I'm constantly being basically, well, if I had to put into one word how to have a peaceful Ramadan with kids, it would be to be intentional. And when we focus on ourselves and we're intentional, we're kind of doing an audit and we're judging ourselves. Your relationship with Allah in the Quran is the number 1 goal. Like for me, it's the number 1 goal. And making sure that my behavior and my actions are aligned with that. That's what Ramadan is about. We're going to come out of Ramadan as a better person, more connected to the Quran. But when we have kids and there's so much going on, how can we do that? And we could do it by they may be in front of us, they may be in our homes, but there's a space in our mind where we can always keep for ourselves. So little things like making sincere dua. And even if we've all constantly making dua and doing dhikr. There's something that I have. This is from productivemuslim.com a long time ago, and it's all wrinkled. I should have laminated this, but it's basically, it says spirituality, productive spirituality, one habit a minute. So all of these is like a wheel, and it says all the different kind of things that you can do in 1 minute. And I have a little tape here, and I've taped it in my kitchen. So while I'm in the kitchen, I'll look at one of these and I'll say that, it says, the best of words, Subhanallah wa bihamdi, Subhanallah al-azim. The phrases that are light on the tongue and heavy on the scale. And imagine we're doing it in Ramadan. And so I have this up next to my, in my kitchen, where I am a lot of the times. So while I'm making an egg, while I'm waiting for the bread to toast, I can just, this is just a reminder of I can just pick one and do this. It takes 1 minute. While I'm waiting for the eggs to boil, I just have this on the side. And sometimes if my kids are there, then I'll also tell them that, well, we have 1 minute. What can we pick? Pick something that mama can do. Just pick something, point at something. And so now it becomes, when my son is there and I say that, do you want to pick something from the wheel for me? And then they know that. And I also told my kids, if you see that I'm like my tone is changing and I'm getting mean or I'm I'm getting irritable, I want you to remind mama to pick something from the wheel. So just the first day of Ramadan, my daughter said, can you pick something from the wheel? I think you need to pick something from the wheel. And so that reminded me. Just really quickly, I know that it's already 12, but focusing on ourselves, being really, really honest with ourselves and thinking that, there's some things that I need to work on and making a plan for that. One of the things that my husband said that, why don't we all pick a surah to memorize? So working on that every day and bringing the kids in and having them be involved as well, because they can help remind us. So the other day I was like, you guys, I'm falling behind. I really need time to memorize this. And they're like, okay, we'll help you. We'll do it with you. So that really helped because I'm focusing on myself. I'm able to bring the kids in, and because they're engaged with me, we're connected, and that all creates a very peaceful Ramadan for us. And so the last one that I wanted to talk about is the sixth and last one. How to have a peaceful Ramadan is be realistic. When I had my baby, and about 6 years ago, and I wasn't praying or fasting, I said that, I'm not praying or fasting. So I made a checklist of all the things I wanted to do. There was like 10 things on that checklist. I didn't get to all of that. Even though they were like short little things, I didn't. I did 2 of them. By the end, I was looking at it, I'm like, okay, which one can I do today? Which one? At least I want to check one off today. So in a way that I like that I had 10 things, and then I could just pick 1 or 2 each day. But my intention was to do all of them. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put the kids to sleep, and then I'm just going to do all of these things. And I realized that, that's not always realistic. Sometimes, and also knowing that, okay, is it really realistic for me to make extra meals and drop off every week? Or can I just pick up something? And that was just the most freeing thing that I did, was that, I had to drop off a meal, but I know that they really love this halal restaurant. So I'm just going to actually order and pick it up and drop it off to them. And that just helped free up time. And then also, I didn't have that anxiety and, always thinking that, okay, I have to start, I have to, it's 3 o'clock, I have to start cooking. It's 3 o'clock, it's 3:15, I have to do this. And that was just chaotic, because then when my kids came to me at 3:15 and I'm in the kitchen and I'm like, I gotta hurry up and finish this. I can't meet your needs. So what I did was I was like, you know what? I don't have to cook myself. I can actually order meals and drop it off to people, or just have somebody else do that for me. I physically don't have to spend hours in the kitchen. That was really helpful. And also instead of thinking that what we can't do, you know, a lot of times when we're being realistic and we're like, you know what, we can't do all these things. We can't fast, we can't pray, we can't just sit there for an hour or two. We can't do these things. But I'm asking you to ask yourself a different question. What can you do? What can you do? Can you sit for 5 minutes? Can you open the Quran and sit for 5 minutes at a time and just do one ayah and just come back to it and then go back to it? And at one time, like when my kids were little, I was always constantly washing them. Someone's going to the bathroom, they're calling me, I have to wash them, then I make wudu, and then I go back to the Quran, and then someone else goes to the bathroom, I wash them, I make wudu, and I'm just like, you know what? I can never just have peace. But then I was looking at the negatives, right? Because of them, I got to make wudu 2 times. That's good deeds. You know, I'm gonna count that in. I washed them and then I made wudu twice in 1 hour. You know, and instead of looking at it as a negative, how about looking at it as a positive? So being realistic and thinking in a positive way of what you can do. Making a list of all the things and just picking one out of those 10 things that you can do it that day. And at different phases, it's different. And also not comparing ourselves to other parents, because there might be a parent who has children the same age as yours, but they're able to do way more. Maybe their kid's temperament is different. Maybe they have extra help. Maybe they don't have picky eaters. There's just so many different things that it could be. So not comparing ourselves to anybody else and just being realistic and having that intention, because we all want to reap the benefits of Ramadan. And we can all get close to Allah by being intentional, by being present, by doing all these things for the sake of Allah and renewing our attentions. And lastly, I just want to end by saying that we have to cut ourselves some slack. And also, if you're looking at so far what I have done, it's only been 5 days. We can change things, we can implement things, we can add things, we can remove things. We can do that. And we don't need anybody's permission to do that. And being close to Allah, it comes from our heart. And so when we're thinking about, we're looking outside, we're taking a walk, we're looking at the trees and we're reflecting on Allah's creation, that counts too. So getting close to Allah without distraction, that itself brings so much peace to our homes. And inshallah, I make dua that you all have a peaceful Ramadan and can implement and benefit from some of these. Jazakallah khair. I don't know if there are questions.
Jazakallah khair, Shahnila. MashaAllah, you did not only give us tips for a peaceful Ramadan, I'm certain you gave us tips for a peaceful lifetime, with or without children. MashaAllah, Jazakallah khair. In the interest of time, we cannot take questions at the moment, but we'd love to end with a dua from Sister Nabila, inshallah.
Jazakallahu khair and barakallah fiki, mashallah. Beautiful speech, beautiful information. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك تبارك اسمك وتعالى جدك وجل ثناؤك ولا إله إلا غيرك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خيرا.